You're still using bark chips, straw, or those overpriced garden mulches thinking you're doing your soil a favor. But here's the problem. Most of those mulches either rob your soil of nutrients as they break down, attract pests you don't need, or just sit there, doing almost nothing. I've been gardening for years, running raised beds, small backyard plots, and even experimenting with hydroponics, and I can tell you, if you're serious about soil health, wax-free cardboard is the game changer you've been ignoring. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to use it to feed your worms, boost your compost, and dramatically improve your soil structure. And if you're serious about seeing real results, hit that subscribe button early. I promise you, every tip here is worth keeping in your toolbox. The first thing most gardeners get wrong is thinking mulch is just about keeping weeds down. That's a side benefit at best. The real impact comes from the way mulch interacts with your soil life. Bark chips, for example, take forever to break down and tie up nitrogen as they decompose, leaving your plants hungry. Straw can introduce weed seeds and fungal spores. Cardboard, specifically wax-free cardboard, behaves entirely differently. It breaks down at a predictable rate, adds carbon to your soil, and feeds the microbe community that your plants actually rely on. When you layer wax-free cardboard directly on top of your soil, start by wetting it thoroughly. It needs to be damp but not swimming. Tear it into pieces about 12 to 18 inches wide, overlapping the edges slightly so you create a continuous barrier. If you're working in a raised bed, one layer is usually sufficient for a season, roughly half an inch thick when fluffed. In larger backyard plots, you can lay it thicker, up to an inch, particularly if you're covering bare ground in fall or winter. The key is to keep it in contact with the soil so worms and microbes can get to work. Speaking of worms, this is where the magic really happens. Cardboard provides a perfect carbon source for worms to thrive. I've found that in my backyard beds, adding a layer of cardboard over slightly damp compost, and then topping it with a handful of kitchen scraps creates a microhabitat where worms multiply rapidly. For apartment gardeners or anyone indoors, you can replicate this process in a vermicomposter. The FCMP Outdoor Essential Living Composter is one of my favorites. Its two-tray system with angled migration tunnels and a moisture control channel keeps bedding evenly moist, so your worms stay productive. You don't need to buy the worms directly from the store if you have a small garden population. You can let them naturally migrate from your soil into the compost trays over time. I've included the product link in the description if you want to check it out. It's a practical way to make worm composting easy and odor-free even indoors. Now, let's talk timing and maintenance. Cardboard doesn't just sit there, you know. Over the course of 4 to 6 weeks, depending on your climate and soil moisture, you'll notice the edges starting to soften. That's when the soil microbes are actively breaking it down and incorporating it into the topsoil. If it dries out, simply sprinkle water over it. But avoid heavy rain saturation because saturated cardboard can compact and form a barrier that slows air movement. One trick I use in raised beds is to sprinkle a light layer of finished compost between the cardboard sheets. Hydroponic growers often ask me, why would I use cardboard when my plants don't even grow in soil? Well, here's the thing. Cardboard isn't just a soil amendment. It's a slow-release source of carbon that can feed your vermicomposting system, which in turn produces worm tea. That liquid fertilizer is pure gold for hydroponics, providing trace nutrients and humic acids that support root growth. I typically dilute 1 part worm tea to 1 part water and feed it directly to my hydroponic reservoirs every 2 to 3 weeks. The result is a healthier root zone, better nutrient uptake, and plants that are more resistant to stress. Some gardeners worry about toxins from printed ink or adhesives. Stick strictly to corrugated cardboard that is wax-free and free from heavy inks. If you want to be meticulous, remove any tape and printed labels. Most brown shipping boxes are ideal. I've tested this for years across multiple garden types, and the difference in soil structure, moisture retention, and microbial activity is immediate. In a small backyard plot, Soil covered with wax-free cardboard retains up to 30% more moisture through the summer months, which reduces watering needs and prevents nutrient leaching. Another advantage that I can't overstate is weed suppression. Unlike straw or grass clippings, cardboard forms a nearly impenetrable layer for weed seeds while still allowing water and air to pass. The result is less weeding, healthier plants, and soil that's actively feeding your crops instead of fighting them. In my raised beds, I combine about ½ an inch of cardboard with a top layer of mulch made from shredded leaves or garden clippings. This combination locks in moisture, encourages earthworm activity, and breaks down uniformly over the season. By the end of the summer, you'll have a 2 to 3 inch layer of rich, friable soil right on top of your original garden bed. Let's get practical about quantities. For a 4 by 8 foot raised bed, one standard medium shipping box cut and laid flat covers the bed with a slight overlap. If you're covering a full 10 by 20 plot, plan on stacking multiple boxes in layers, keeping the top layer slightly damp. In compost bins, smaller pieces work better because worms can move freely and break them down faster. I typically use cardboard pieces about 6 to 8 inches across in my vermicomposters, and I make sure the bedding is damp enough to hold together when squeezed without dripping water. The real secret, and the reason wax-free cardboard beats all other mulches, is the synergy it creates with worms and microbes. You're not just covering the soil, you're feeding a living system. Healthy worms process kitchen scraps and the cardboard itself into castings that are richer than any bagged fertilizer you can buy. The FCMP Outdoor Essential Living Composter makes it easy to integrate this into a gardening routine, especially if you want to collect worm tea, migrate your worms between trays, and maintain ideal moisture levels with minimal fuss. Of course, nothing is perfect. Cardboard breaks down slower in very dry climates, so you'll need to monitor moisture more closely. In extremely wet areas, you might need to layer a thin sheet of newspaper or a breathable tarp over it to prevent compaction. And if you're dealing with perennial weeds that send up vigorous runners, cardboard alone may not completely stop them, but it will give you a huge head start. Compared to any synthetic mulch, wood chips, or straw, the maintenance effort is minimal and the benefits far outweigh the small inconveniences. At the end of the day, wax-free cardboard is cheap, renewable, and incredibly effective. It keeps weeds down, retains moisture, feeds your worms, and breaks down into rich organic matter that improves soil structure season after season. Whether you're a seasoned backyard gardener, a raised bed grower, or even running a small indoor hydroponic setup with vermicompost support, this is the mulch you want. And if you want to make worm composting easier and more efficient, I highly recommend checking out the FCMP Outdoor Essential Living Composter. The link is in the description. It's practical, affordable, and designed to make vermicomposting something you can actually manage without it turning into a chore. If you found this helpful, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I post practical, no-nonsense gardening advice that you can apply immediately, whether you're growing food, flowers, or experimenting with soil improvement techniques. Share this video with other gardeners who want real results and not just fluff. When you switch to wax-free cardboard as your primary mulch, you'll see the difference in your soil, your worms, and ultimately, the quality of the food you grow.